Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melanie Tana, and I love to talk about stories of all kinds and all forms. And today I'm talking about one of my fall mood read choices that I devoured in less than a week, which is pretty quick for me, especially considering I was on a trip for a lot of this. But on the flight home, I finished over half of the book, and that book is Juniper Thorn by Ava Reid. Juniper Thorn is, first of all, an adult fantasy-esque book, and I did not know much about it going into it. I knew that the main character was kind of like a witch, and her sisters were witches, and her father a wizard. I could get the sense that there would be some family drama, a little bit of romance, but I definitely knew that the themes and the vibes would be a little dark, a little spooky, and that is true. This book was dark, it was heavy, it dealt with not only heavy themes, but just the actual events in detail were rich and gory, and at sometimes very difficult to read, which I'm going to say right off the bat is okay. It's also okay if you don't want to read this book, and before I get into what I thought about it, I won't be giving any spoilers as part of this review, but I am going to read off the trigger warning list. It's a long list as far as trigger warnings go. I had to look it up to remember everything. This is the comprehensive list I was given. I feel like it captures everything. Bear with me. So the triggers include gore and body horror. This is a horror fantasy, not just a regular dark fantasy, just forewarning. It also deals with child sex abuse, incest, cannibalism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, scientific racism, as well as physical and psychological abuse from family members, including gaslighting. There are some scenes of animal death, and a character deals with an eating disorder, specifically bulimia, and there are graphic descriptions of vomiting. So if those things sound like absolute no's for you, please just step back, read something a little bit lighter. To say the least, I was a little bit surprised by this book, but not bothered by it. The other thing I will say in the way of a sort of content wording, this isn't the fade to black fantasy that I typically read. This isn't like Wheel of Time mentionings of pillow friends or, oh, they're not married yet, but they're sleeping in the same bed. Like, it's not that. It's also detailed in more adult experiences sexually. And if you're not comfortable with that, I would also recommend maybe not reading it. There's a point to all of it. And I just want to say right off the bat, Reads with Rachel, is that her channel? If I mess that up, I'm sorry, Rachel. She's great. She does a lot of different types of reviews. You might know her from her Authors Behaving Badly type of series that she does. And she does talk about this book. Please don't bother her about this. Please don't bother anyone about this. If you're like, what are you talking about? Then you haven't seen her review. If you check out the review, her discussion it taught me a lot and gave me a lot of perspective. I already liked the book, but this kind of solidified for me why this book is important. I'm just gonna say, as a person who has not experienced child SA or SA of any kind, very little trauma, I think, has happened to me in my life. I feel like I could tell that I think the scenes that are more explicit, more adult, are not written for shock value, and they aren't even, I would dare say, written for the romance or the steaminess of it, but for the exploration of this type of character without making her this virtuous victim, but this person. She's a witch, but she's a human, you know, she's going through this human experience, and Ava Reid writes it so well and gives such a great perspective. So I think that's a big thing that people had a hard time with. There apparently was this controversy. A lot of people were turned off by it. I do think that not reading explicit content is totally okay. If that's not up your alley, that's all right. I feel similarly in a lot of ways. There are a lot of books I don't want to read because I'm not going for that level of detail in people's sexual lives. Like, that's not what I want to know. But in this case, I didn't really feel like it was made for the steaminess and the passion of it. It was written for the exploration of a survivor of SA, and that's okay, and that's good. I think that stuff like that should exist, and this story has a point, and every part of it feels like it has a point. I started this book. I had a few issues immediately. One was that I was surprised by the details and was like, oh yeah, no, this is an adult book. And then the next thing I noticed is that the main character is a bit innocent, a bit naive. She has very little exposure to the world, but to the point where I felt like for a brief part of the book, I understood her sister's frustration with her naivete. And then I immediately felt defensive for her. This character is written so well. She is the youngest of 3 sisters. She's not very beautiful, but she is a witch like her sisters, and it's impressed on you that she is ugly. There is no moment necessarily where you're supposed to feel like she was beautiful all along, or she took off her glasses, or someone washed her hair and she was beautiful. She's just not pretty like her sisters. This character, and I haven't even said the character's name. I'm off to a rough start. You're just gonna have to deal with it. Sorry guys, love you. The main character, because I did not really pronounce her name in my head, I had to look up different pronunciations. Some people are saying Marlinchin, which is fine. I think in my brain I was kind of reading Marlinchen. It's Marlinchen. So this book was so well written. She knew her character. She knew her character so well, and her growth was incredible. So I would say, if you want to learn about character growth, about sort of the eye-opening of a character, this is a great one. There are a lot of stories of heroes being thrown into events that are intense or even traumatic, but they still feel like these innocent, oh boy, like what a fun adventure stories. Whereas this one, she's been in the thick of it. Her whole life has been full of just horrible family dynamics and trauma. And so if you want to read the sort of peeling back of the truth for a character like that, this is a great one to read. Again, reminder, trigger warnings, check those out beforehand. Some of the things I liked a lot, just generally the vibes. Her writing, Ava Reid's, has this quality in this book of being so beautiful and rich, and yet there's something like a taste of it that's a little bit rotten. Honestly, it feels like something overgrown, and that fits it so well, because that's kind of what this life is. This father holding onto this manor that's like this decaying world, not being open to the future, not being open to new types of people, and sort of his withering away that's happening. And it's so incredibly beautiful and discomforting in the best way. And because of her writing being both beautiful and dark, she manages to capture the reality of it without romanticizing it, but also without being totally hopeless about it. There is a bit of a mystery in this story as well that is woven at the end, especially, I find very effectively. There were parts where I wanted more of the mystery, and I was kind of disappointed we weren't getting more of that, but what I was getting was still interesting. This family drama dynamic was still tense, and I could still feel like the progression of it and sort of wondering where it would go. While I wouldn't say this book is actually romantic, but there is a companionship type plotline that can be perceived as romantic, but I think is more than that, and also not quite enough of what people want out of romance. I think this is not a romance book. This isn't even a romance subplot. It's still about the character and the healing and the process of recognizing, oh, I have trauma, you know? But I appreciated what the characters did for each other and how they saw each other and opened each other's eyes. Their first interaction, while you definitely get the sense of attraction, there's also kindness in it that is like, both are okay. Both are good. If I learned anything, or if I can pinpoint the thing I learned, I would say, again, if you're looking to explore a type of character who is naive and has an innocence that way, and start seeing the world for what it really is, this is a really great example without it being like, oh darn, I'm being thrown onto this quest. It's not happy. It's not this thrilling, wondrous experience of, oh, I see the world as it is. It's such a lovely adventure. It's, oh, no, my world sucks, and I am seeing where it's headed and where I'm headed and where I have a choice. Choice is a big thing in this, and I really love it. Without getting into spoilers, I also think that this is a well-written mystery with an emotional twist attached to the actual twist. there's a discovery made because of the big discovery, and how it affects the relationships with people. I just thought it was so interesting how a twist in a story can have multiple layers. And if you want it to hit home and affect your reader, or just be an emotional tool as well, you can connect characters more to the mystery. Rather than a detective who's not really related to the crime except for the fact that he can solve the crime, you have characters who really are quite close to the situation, even if they don't fully understand why. It's very beautiful. There's also so much symbolism that you can glean from this that, again, she does not spell out for you, and looking back, I thought was so fascinating. If anyone wants to discuss any of it or has read it and wants to express their opinion, I'd love to hear about it. I really am going to have to edit this down because I just rambled. I even had notes and I rambled. But I thought this book was very interesting. A little bit out of my comfort zone in a sense, and also just my reading zone. But so captivating. Again, check out the trigger warnings. Consider the content. If that's not your vibe, that's okay. It's okay that I read it. If you follow my channel and you're disappointed that I've read something like that, that's okay. We all read things, and they're books, and they're just books. And if you want to not read this book, you don't have to. So, but if you do want to read this book, let me know your thoughts, and also take care of yourself, and maybe have a palate cleanser afterward and before. I don't know. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. You're all awesome. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye.